Many Christians carry a quiet sense of guilt in their hearts when, in the middle of praying the Rosary or any devotional prayer, sleep begins to creep in. They think, maybe my faith is weak, or even, if I were truly spiritual, I wouldn't be dozing off right now. That feeling of failure weighs heavier than physical tiredness because it touches the soul, the intimate relationship with God, and with the Church. But the truth is, the Bible shows repeatedly that even those closest to Jesus Christ faltered during moments of prayer. The heaviness we feel isn't just biological. It reflects a heart striving to stay vigilant. And it's right there that one of the greatest keys to devotional life is hidden. That's why, in this video, we'll focus on something Padre Pio took very seriously. When you feel sleepy during the Rosary, don't ignore that signal. Often, that fatigue isn't just physical. It can be a spiritual alert, an invitation to vigilance and inner struggle. Padre Pio taught that the Rosary is a powerful weapon, and that's exactly why the enemy tries to weaken our focus. To strengthen your faith, write in the comments, "Mary, keep me awake in prayer," and join this chain of devotion. Now, follow along as we uncover what this sleep during the Rosary really signifies. When someone finds themselves battling sleep during the Rosary, they often forget to value the effort itself. How many young Christians, for example, struggle to stay engaged in worship or Bible study but give up at the slightest sign of weakness? Yet every attempt, every whispered word, every breath turned into prayer, holds value before God. Padre Pio said that even the smallest prayers, interrupted by fatigue, are gathered like pearls of faith. The mistake is measuring spirituality by performance, when the Gospel shows that God's grace shines precisely in human weakness. Here's a powerful point. If sleep during prayer isn't merely biological, what does it signify spiritually? If Jesus' disciples fell asleep in Gethsemane, on the brink of the greatest spiritual battle in history, could sleep today also reflect something deeper? Perhaps it's a sign of an invisible struggle, maybe an invitation from God to reflect more deeply on your spiritual journey. The key isn't to dwell in guilt, but to discover what this sleep reveals about your devotional life. And that brings us to our next insight, where we explore sleep as a spiritual battlefield. Few notice, but the sleep that comes precisely at prayer isn't always just ordinary tiredness. It's as if an unseen force tries to neutralize the sword a Christian wields when praying the Rosary. Padre Pio called the Rosary a powerful weapon against hell, and every weapon raised invites the enemy's reaction. Here lies the hidden pain. Many believe that feeling sleepy means their spirituality is weak. But what if, in truth, sleep is proof that your prayer is being heard and contested? The enemy would rather you sleep than utter a single Hail Mary, because even one prayer carries eternal weight in the spiritual realm. Imagine someone who prays every day but is always overcome by sleep before completing the mysteries. They quickly conclude, "I'm not strong enough, I'm not worthy." But this is the trap. The Bible shows that before his arrest, Jesus found his disciples asleep when he asked them to watch with him. It wasn't just fatigue, it reflected a spiritual battle they didn't yet understand. The same happens to us. The Rosary isn't a mechanical repetition of words, it's living praise, an act of worship and spiritual resistance. Every prayer said is like a brick in the wall protecting the soul. So, when sleep tries to take over at this moment, don't see it as defeat, but as a sign of battle. This is when religion shifts from theory to practice, staying steadfast even in the midst of drowsiness. The best way to respond isn't to give up, but to rise, drink a glass of water, walk a bit, and resume prayer. The enemy wants you to stop because your perseverance strikes harder than 1,000 sermons or services. This invisible battlefield is where faith is honed and testimonies of faith are born. And seeing this reality helps us realize that not all sleep is merely physical. Sometimes the body is speaking something deeper. The body communicates more than we often realize, and in spiritual life, it's usually the first messenger that something is out of balance. When someone starts nodding off during prayer, it doesn't always mean spiritual weakness. Sometimes, it's just the body signaling a need for rest. But other times, it could also be a message from God. It's time to reorganize your routine, because even your prayer is being weighed down by daily burdens. Like a flickering lamp revealing a circuit overload or fault, sleep during the Rosary can point to an imbalance between body and spirit, and true spirituality calls for harmony, not blind effort. Many young Christians, for instance, dive into Bible study, work, and church commitments, yet neglect their bodies. Prayer, worship, and praise grow heavy when the body can no longer keep up. Interestingly, the Bible shows Jesus himself withdrawing to rest, even amidst crowds clamoring for miracles. He teaches us that true faith cannot exist without balance. If even the Son of God respected the body's limits, who are we to ignore them? Sleep may be nothing more than a reminder that spirituality isn't about disconnecting from life, but about integrating it wisely. Here's a translation in the tone you requested. Here's a simple but powerful practice. Pay attention to 3 things before you pray the Rosary. First, the time of day. If you always start late at night, your body may already be signaling it's ready for bed before you even begin. Second, your intention. Praying without clarity leaves your mind wandering, and sleep comes easily. Third, the environment. If it's always the same dark, quiet space, your body may already associate it with rest rather than prayer. Change the environment, light a candle, pray aloud, or even walk devotionally with the Rosary in hand, and the prayer transforms. When we truly listen to our bodies, they stop being obstacles and become allies in our spiritual life. It's curious how often we confuse this balance with peace, when it may just be disguised drowsiness. How many times do we sit down to pray, feel our bodies grow heavy, our eyes slowly closing, and think, this is God's peace? But caution is needed. Not every relaxation is a sign of God's presence. There's a subtle, invisible error in mistaking spiritual drowsiness for serenity of heart. Padre Pio warned his spiritual children that the enemy stirs sleep right during prayer, knowing that each Hail Mary has the power to rescue souls from his grasp. That drowsiness, then, is not rest, it's distraction masked as calm. Consider a simple example. During a sermon, some people feel heaviness in their eyes. It's not that the preaching lacks life, it's that a silent battle is trying to steal the seed of the gospel before it's even planted. The same happens at home during devotion. You open the Bible to study, and suddenly sleep hits like an unstoppable wave. It may seem coincidental, but it isn't. The enemy doesn't need grand scandals to shake faith, he simply nudges us toward slumber during prayer. This is the kind of distraction many fail to notice, yet it robs praise, worship, and even testimonies of faith. That's why discernment must be cultivated. True peace doesn't paralyze, it awakens. True spirituality doesn't dull consciousness, it illuminates it. When a prayer brings authentic peace, the mind is clear, the heart warmed, and the soul in a state of worship. Spiritual drowsiness is different. It makes you sleepy, scatters your focus, and severs connection with God. The advice is simple, yet profound. When you feel that weight during prayer, don't accept it as peace right away. Stand up, wash your face, say Jesus' name aloud, and return to the Rosary. You'll notice that the line between peace and drowsiness is thin, but once discovered, it transforms the entire devotional experience. And when spiritual routines become automatic, without intention, that line becomes even more dangerous. Many people approach devotion almost like a checklist: Rosary done, service attended, Bible study completed. But faith doesn't work that way. When prayer becomes mechanical, the soul loses touch with the true meaning of spirituality. It's in this void that sleep sneaks in, as if saying, "There's no energy here anymore." Padre Pio always emphasized that intention keeps the flame alive. Without it, the Rosary becomes nothing more than finger movements and repeated words without life. The analogy is clear. Imagine a candle suffocating for lack of oxygen, smoke curling, nearly extinguished. That's the automatic routine in prayer. You can recite all the Hail Marys, but your heart isn't alight. The body responds with fatigue, yawns, and drowsiness. A young Christian who studies the Bible every day out of obligation likely experiences this. Spiritual energy drains because the act isn't nourished by genuine intention, the desire to connect with Jesus Christ, or commitment to one's own spiritual life. The practical application is simple but powerful. Before starting the Rosary, say your intention aloud. Tell yourself, "Today I pray for discernment," or "Today my praise will be for the protection of my family." This isn't ritualism, it's breathing life into prayer. When the intention is clear, the flame of faith burns again, and the sleep that once seemed inevitable loses its power. This simple act transforms devotion into a profound experience of connection with God, preparing the heart to notice the subtle signals that follow, like the messages of body and spirit. Often, the fatigue that comes during the Rosary isn't just physical, it's emotional and spiritual. When the mind is overwhelmed by worries, anxieties, and daily challenges, sleep appears as an unconscious escape. It's like carrying stones in your pockets while trying to swim. With every yawn, the soul sinks a little, and the prayer loses its lightness. Padre Pio understood this deeply and advised the faithful to hand their concerns over to God before even starting the Rosary, so the mind could truly open to spirituality and praise. In practice, this can be done in a simple yet powerful way. Before you begin, take a moment and say aloud or in your mind, "Lord, I give you my anxieties, my fear, my doubts." This verbal gesture transforms the devotional moment into a living connection, allowing every Hail Mary to be more than words. It becomes an act of surrender. It is precisely this surrender that separates mechanical prayer from true worship, making each moment of devotion a concrete testimony of faith. The analogy is clear. Imagine trying to swim while carrying sacks of stones. Every movement is effort and exhaustion, and even the best technique can't help. But when you let go of the stones, the body floats, the breath finds its rhythm, and every gesture becomes effortless and light. The same happens with spirituality. When you surrender your worries, the body stops fighting fatigue, and prayer flows naturally. And when we realize that sleep isn't always the enemy, but often a signal of what needs to be released, we begin to approach devotion more consciously, connecting intention, faith, and action. Not all sleep during prayer is a sign of failure or spiritual weakness. Padre Pio reminded us that even falling asleep with the Rosary in hand, heart turned toward God, is still prayer accepted. Many feel guilt or fear that their spirituality is compromised, but that is precisely the enemy's trick, making the faithful condemn themselves and abandon devotion. The truth is, God gathers even the fragments of intention, every sigh, every Hail Mary uttered from the heart, even when the eyes close from fatigue. It is a quiet mercy that protects and strengthens the spirit, even when performance seems to fail. It's an invitation to see spirituality differently. Young Christians, adults, we can all learn that intention matters more than perfection. The Bible is full of examples of God valuing the surrender of the heart above outward acts. When the Rosary is lived this way, it becomes not just a ritual, but an ongoing experience of worship, even if the body yields. It's like music continuing to play even if the violinist pauses briefly. The melody still resonates in the space, echoing in the soul. Practically, this means that when sleep comes, it's not a moment for self-blame or abandoning the Rosary, but for offering it to God. You might sleep with the Rosary between your fingers or rest your hand on it, keeping the symbolic connection. When you wake, resume prayer without resentment or rush, aware that faith and intention remain active. It is in this space between sleep and wakefulness that we learn to trust, to surrender, and to sense God's mercy working quietly, profoundly, and transformatively. Sleep during prayer doesn't need to be seen as a break, but as a silent extension of devotion. Even when the eyes close and the body yields, the heart remains connected to God, and every intention offered during the Rosary continues to resonate in the spirit. Padre Pio taught that true prayer is not limited to physical action, but to the surrender of the heart. That moment of stillness or drowsiness is, in reality, a time God gathers and transforms, keeping the spiritual energy alive. The analogy with firewood is powerful. Even after the flames die, the wood still radiates heat, warms, and transforms its surroundings. In the same way, even if the Rosary is interrupted by sleep, the fragments of prayer continue to work in the soul. Every mystery prayed, every Hail Mary spoken before resting, maintains an energetic connection with God, reinforcing praise, worship, and silent devotion. It's a reminder that faith does not rely on mechanical perfection, but on the continuity of intention and heart. Practically, this means that upon waking, one should not feel defeated, but ready to resume prayer where it left off. Keeping the Rosary or Bible close can help continue the mysteries without guilt or haste. This approach turns what seemed like interruption into conscious continuity, strengthening spirituality and trust in God's mercy. When we understand sleep as a silent extension of prayer, we see that brief pauses don't diminish faith, but create space for it to renew and deepen. Sleep during prayer can be seen as small deaths of the spirit, moments when faith seems to weaken or attention drifts. Yet these pauses do not mean defeat. On the contrary, they are opportunities for spiritual resurrection. Padre Pio often said that every moment of surrender, even if interrupted by fatigue, holds value before God. Resuming the Rosary after sleep is not a simple restart. It is a true resurrection of faith, a moment of reconnection with spirituality and the devotional heart. The metaphor of Christ sleeping in the boat during the storm perfectly captures this concept. While the disciples panicked, he rested, showing that apparent inactivity was not absence of power, but complete trust in the Father. In the same way, falling asleep during prayer does not mean spirituality has ended. It is an invitation to trust, to understand that God is present even when the body yields. Sleep, then, is not the enemy, but a messenger of resilience and opportunity for renewal, a bridge between human frailty and divine strength. Practically, transforming sleep into a gesture of trust involves small habits: holding the Rosary, silencing the heart, and upon waking, resuming the mysteries without guilt or rush. It is an exercise of conscious faith, reinforcing spirituality and keeping the connection with God alive, even in moments of apparent weakness. Each resumption becomes a testimony of faith, a silent praise that transforms devotional experience into a continuous process of renewal. Every time sleep comes, there is also an opportunity to rise spiritually, strengthening the heart and illuminating the journey. The moment someone wakes after dozing during the Rosary is incredibly powerful, because each conscious return carries the strength of renewal. Padre Pio always taught that intention matters more than quantity, and when we come back to prayer with full awareness, even the smallest Hail Mary gains spiritual depth. This act transforms every nap into an opportunity for devotional growth, as if each fragment of prayer is gathered and multiplied by the heart itself. The body has rested, but the soul awakens to an even deeper experience of faith. The analogy of a seed sprouting after the rain fits perfectly. Rest and sleep prepare the ground, and a conscious return lets faith bloom. Each resumption is a moment of reconnection with Jesus Christ, with spirituality, and with the Bible, strengthening the bond with prayer and worship. Young Christians, adults, and elders alike can see that simply resuming prayer with awareness turns what seemed like an interruption into a process of spiritual unfolding. The Rosary, which may have once felt routine or obligatory, becomes fertile ground for growth and intimacy with God. In practice, this calls for small habits. Breathe deeply upon waking, hold the Rosary, close your eyes for a moment, and resume where you left off. Feel each mystery as if it were the first, but with the experience gained before sleep. In this way, prayer ceases to be linear and mechanical, becoming a daily cycle of spiritual death and resurrection. Each conscious return reinforces that spirituality isn't about perfection, but about intention and presence, preparing the heart to notice God's mercy working in the small details of life. The sleep that comes during the Rosary isn't an obstacle, it's a profound sign. It reveals the invisible nuances of spiritual life, the battle between attention and distraction, between intention and mechanical routine. Padre Pio saw these moments with clarity and compassion, knowing that perseverance is the key that opens unseen doors of grace. Every instant of drowsiness or fatigue, if properly understood, is an invitation to self-observation, a reminder that faith depends not on mechanical perfection, but on the surrender of the heart. God does not condemn us for faltering, just as Jesus awakened his disciples in Gethsemane without judgment, but with an invitation to vigilance. Spirituality is a continuous practice. It is measured not by time or the number of Hail Marys, but by the love and sincerity we pour into each devotional act. Understanding sleep as a sign rather than a failure transforms the Rosary into a living experience, worship that transcends words and reaches the heart. Vigilance and intention become far more valuable than mere automatic repetition. The final call is simple, yet profound. Do not ignore the signals of body and spirit. Use them as a starting point to reorganize your routine, deepen your faith, and offer your intentions with heart rather than perfection. Every moment of sleep, every pause, every conscious return is an opportunity for growth, spiritual rebirth, and closer connection with spirituality, the Bible, prayer, and Jesus Christ. Embracing this rhythm transforms the Rosary from a mechanical act into a continuous testimony of faith, opening the way to a conscious and powerful devotion. The sleep that arises during the Rosary isn't just a fleeting moment. It carries lessons that extend throughout the entire spiritual life. Every yawn, every distraction or drowsiness during prayer reveals hidden patterns, silent anxiety, emotional fatigue, unconscious habits that drain spiritual energy. Padre Pio reminded us that spirituality isn't confined to the moment of worship, Bible study, or reciting the Rosary. It should permeate every action of daily life. In this sense, sleep acts as a mirror, showing where we need to be more attentive, where surrender isn't complete, where routine overshadows living devotion. Observing this sign is learning to watch the heart and mind consciously, turning what once seemed like weakness into an opportunity for growth. The analogy with physical training helps make this clearer. Just as a muscle isn't strengthened by exercising it once a week, spiritual vigilance requires daily practice. Every small moment of attention, whether a brief silent thanksgiving, a reflection on Scripture, or even an instant of praise, strengthens the soul, keeps faith connected, and prepares the spirit to resist the distractions that appear throughout the day. Young Christians and devoted adults can apply this idea by creating mini prayer rituals. Upon waking, dedicate a few minutes to meditation or the Rosary. During work, silently offer thoughts of gratitude or ask for discernment. Before bed, reflect on the day and resume intentions that were interrupted. Each simple gesture becomes an invisible thread, keeping the connection with God alive, even when the body is tired or the mind distracted. In practice, incorporating the lessons of sleep means turning every interruption into opportunity. It's not just about resuming prayer after dozing off. It's about recognizing the patterns that body and mind signal, and using them to reorganize habits, adjust priorities, and strengthen continuous spirituality. A real-life example would be noticing that frequent sleep during the Rosary occurs after long periods of stress or excessive worry, indicating that surrendering these burdens to God should become a daily practice, not just something done during formal prayer. In this way, faith manifests integrally. Vigilance extends to work, family, Bible study, and worship, turning each day into a living devotional experience. Sleep ceases to be the enemy and becomes a silent teacher, reminding us that spirituality is a continuous exercise, one that must be cultivated with intention, presence, and love, strengthening the heart and illuminating the entire journey of the Christian walk.